Hey guys, Mr. Zern here. Got some more Python notes for you. Specifically today, we're going to be looking at incremental counters, but also how to generate a random number, which is going to have tons of benefits for us here in the future. As I mentioned, using an incremental counter to perform, a task a specific number of times. It's going to tie into our random number generator. This assignment's also going to focus a little bit on preventing invalid entries. We're not going to focus on that in the notes. That was in a previous lesson. And then we've talked about this before, but again, I'll kind of repeat, how to create custom responses depending on what the user has to do. There's lots of ways to do it. I'm just going to kind of show you one way of making that happen. All right, so here I am in Replit, and we're going to start right off the bat just with a couple new things here. So this is like importing the entire like math library. Okay, so there are all kinds of things that we can program in Python, but a lot of functions, as they call it, have been done by someone else and are just waiting for us to utilize. And so we can kind of import these things instead of us having to generate. If you think back to App Inventor, and we did like, hey, generate a 4-digit random number, and we kind of had like an incremental counter there that did it for us. I mean, there's also just functions we can say, hey, generate me a random number. So, and I'm just going to hashtag this out in a moment. But so, for example, I could say, hey, import math. And this would just import every single like math function out there. We don't necessarily want to do that right now because we really only need one of them. But again, if I remove that hashtag, we would see that happen. But again, why not use all of them? Well, we don't want to slow our program down. I don't know if we would see the slowdown here in Replit, but again, in a large program, there's no need to include extra coding and things that we don't need to utilize. All right, so we're just going to import one command here. Oh my gosh, that autocorrect is killing me. There we go. Okay. All right, new importing one command. So I'm going to say, hey, from random import random int. All right, so from random import random int. All right, so basically that gives us the ability to generate a random number. All right, so let's make that actually happen here. And so creating a random number. All right, so I'm going to declare a variable. We've seen this happen, dozens of times now. It could be anything. I mean, it could just be any kind of random word you want. I'm just going to say, hey, random number equals, and then random int. And then basically they want like an A to B. So basically from what to what. And so I could say, hey, 0, comma, 99. I don't think we need a space there. And so it's going to generate a random number. So let's just print, all right, the random number. And again, it could be anything here. So let's just hit play and say 45, 38, 38. What are the odds of that happening? 91, 83, 50, 60. All right, so it's definitely, just generating a random number for us. I'm going to concatenate it here just to kind of show you that you can. But again, random number is simply just a variable name here. And I could say, hey, your random number is, and let's run that again, just kind of see what it looks like now. Hey, your random number is 88. All right, 88 miles per hour. Great number there from Back to the Future. All right, we can see that kind of taking place here. Now, I'm just going to, for what we're doing, I don't need that many. I'm going to say, actually, how about 1 through 9? Actually, we'll say 1 through 10. There we go. It gives us a couple digits to work with there. So really just, kind of a small random number. But again, you could do anything you want. Now, let's create some conditional statements that are going to, again, change depending on what the random number is. And so say, hey, if random number is greater than, I don't know, we'll say 7. I want you to do something. Well, what do I want to do? So, hey, how about print? That's a big number. All right, so there's one option. I hit enter and I'm going to just backspace to get rid of that indent. Else if random number is less than, let's say 4. I want you to do something. And I'll say print, that's a small number. Again, enter and then backspace to get rid of that indent. And I'll say, hey, else. So basically, if the number is not greater than 7 and not less than 4, I want you to do something. Well, what do I want it to do? Print number is not too big or too small. Kind of a generic statement, but it gives us an idea here. So let's run it and just see what happens. All right, your random number is 3. Hey, that's a small number. 3. What are the odds of that? I guess 1 in 10, right? All right, your random number is 10. That's a big number. Let's see if we can get that middle one to pull for us. 10 again. 5. Hey, there we go. That's right in the middle. That number is not too big or too small. So we got one of them there. So again, we're kind of getting, it's sort of a custom response. I mean, you could get even crazier if you wanted in there. Look, if it's equal to this or equal to that or, all kinds of combinations there. But there we've created some conditional statements that's, going to say something different depending on what the random number is. So again, I'm just going to enter down, backspace, get rid of that indent so we're not working inside of that conditional statement. Again, you've seen this multiple times now. I'm just going to, adding a line break here, just again, trying to hopefully improve readability, something for you to strive for in your programming. All right, so what are we going to do here? So let's talk now a little bit about our incremental counter. So first, again, a little bit of review, and I'm going to simply declare a variable. All right, so what does that look like? Again, we've seen this before. How about for now? It could be anything you want. I'm going to say number of times equals 0. So the variable is just simply storing the integer 0 because I'm going to use this in my incremental counter, and we'll kind of see how and why here in a moment. All right, so I'm going to, again, review. We've seen this before. Create a while loop, and basically a while loop runs as long as that condition is being met. So while. All right, so while what? Well, while number of times is less than my random number. All right, and you can see a little bit here why I went with 1 as opposed to 0, but there's lots of ways you could do it. So while number of times is less than random number, I want you to do something. So I already know that number of times is going to be 0. So this should at least run 1 time because 0 is always going to be less than, and the lowest random number is going to be 1 in this situation here. So colon. All right, what do you want to do? Well, first, if I don't put some kind of user input in here somewhere, it's going to spit that infinite loop at me, and I definitely don't want that to happen. So I'm going to just kind of star here. You could put this later in the while loop, but I'm going to put it right off the bat here. And I've got a variable name, do it again. All right, and we're going to have some user input here and say, hey, should I add 1? Yes or no. All right, so that basically, and we can run it quick here. Take a look. Should I add 1? Yes or no? Now I'm going to say yes, and just going to ask to me again because we're not changing anything, and so the condition constantly is being met there. Let me get rid of that typo. So 0 is always less than whatever my random number was. In this case, it was 1. So we're not doing anything to it. So let's add the incremental counterpart here to this. Now you can definitely. I'm going to kind of do this in the long form, but you could definitely abbreviate these in other ways, but I think since it possibly for many of you the first time, let's just sort of do this in the long form to see it. So number of times equals number of times plus 1. And I think I could just do number of times plus 1 would also do it as well. But I'm just going to write it out kind of long so we can just really kind of almost conversationally read through what exactly is happening here. So, and if I run this program, it would, it's definitely going to add to it here. So let's get that. Okay, 8. Yes, 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 yes. Actually, it doesn't really matter what I'm printing because there's no conditional statement in there for that. Now, it just kind of ended because what? Well, because I did it 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then it exited. But from a user's perspective, we don't really know what's going on. So let's just add a little bit more to this, just so we can kind of see what's happening in the background as it's working. So I'm going to add another print statement and say, you have gone number of times. And so that at least will tell us like how many times we've gone around. So that's definitely got some benefit to us. And wouldn't it be nice to know maybe how many more times we have to go as well? So, hey, print, you have to go random number. We can do some mathematical functions here. Say, hey, random number minus what? Well, number of times. So, and let's add a comma here. And again, we'll just add a little bit more concatenation, more times. So, that is, we're going to add, let me get out of there. There we go. So you have to go, and it's going to take the random number. All right. And so, the previous example was 8 minus, the number of times. So initially it's, 0. It immediately 1 gets added to it. And so like 8 minus 1 is 7, and it would show us that 7. All right. And again, just to kind of make things nice and neat here, I'm going to add just a little line break. So it just kind of separates each individual run through. So let's play this once and see what happens. Okay, ooh, big one. Your random number is 9. And again, the program says, that's a big number. Should I add 1? Yes. All right. You have gone 1. And again, I could concatenate that some more if I wanted to. Let's see here. Where is that number of times? You have gone, comma, times. Again, the language isn't going to work out perfectly, but that'll get us where we're going. Anyway, it won't fix that until I run it again. Should I add 1? Yes. All right, you can see you've gone 2. You have 7 more to go. Again, it doesn't really matter what I print here because it's not really measuring the yes or no here. All right, there's 3. You have 6 to go, 4, 5 to go, 5, 4 to go, 6, and it just continues on until we get to the end. You've gone 9, and you have 0 more times. All right. So that kind of shows it to us there. Now, what I'm going to do is just backspace out to get rid of that. And I always like, again, just a little bit of review. We've talked about this before. Some kind of like exit statement. I always think it's nice to know that, hey, you've gotten to the end of the program. And so I'm just going to print like a little goodbye that says, see you later. That way, when we get to the end of the program, it just kind of, does that and it's done. All right, so let's run this again and we can kind of see it in action. Oh man, 10. Let's go something a little smaller maybe. All right, 5. There we go. Should I add 1? And again, it doesn't really matter what I'm typing here, yes or no, because I don't have any kind of, logical operators here that are measuring, do I say yes or no? Again, we've talked about that in a previous lesson, so I don't want to give away everything here, but I'm going to say no. It doesn't matter. You've gone 1 time, you have 4 more to go. All right. Yes. All right. You've gone 2 times, you have 3 more to go. Yes. You've gone 3 times, you have 2 more to go. Okay. Yes. You have gone 4 times, you have 1 more to go. And I'm going to say yes. And it says you have gone 5 times, you have 0 more times. And then, of course, our exit statement that says, see you later. All right, so obviously I've got a video, another video here you can watch. It kind of shows you the final project or one version of this project in action here. But the big things you're going to have to do is, one, you're going to have to import, this random integer function from the Python math library. So, there's that. So that'll get you going. Next, you're going to have to create a variable that basically stores the random number that you want to generate. And so it could be anything, but I have random number, again, something hopefully easy to remember. You could definitely make it that shorter if you want. Equals random int, and then, there's basically A through B. And so like from what do you want to pick? For mine, I just did 1 to 10. All right, and then again, it's kind of nice to know, especially especially in the beginning when you're working, you could theoretically, I like to include this in the beginning when I'm programming. Like if I'm doing some kind of random number, I like to print the random number just so I know, is it working? What's the number as I'm testing other things? You could always delete it later or just hashtag it out if you wanted. Obviously you could leave that sentence there. It's kind of nice to know just what it is and what you're doing there. We were adding some conditional statements. So, hey, if random number is greater than 7, print this message. Else if random number is less than, a certain number, in this case 4, print this statement. And then else, so if it's anything else, then print this other statement. Then we kind of got that incremental counter going with number of times equals, in this case I said 0, but it could be anything. And basically, ultimately, then I've got number of times, so it starts off with 0 is less than my random number. And so 0, let's say even if it's 1, 0 is less than 1. So yep, so then it kicks into the while loop, and I've automatically got a little user statement there so we don't get stuck in an infinite loop. And every time basically I hit enter inside that thing, it's just going to tack 1 on 1 to, and it'll keep going. And then I added some, some programming here, some mathematical operation, just so we can kind of see what's going on in the background. So again, just kind of looking at your challenge. 1, hopefully not too difficult, generate a random number. Okay, great. Use an incremental counter that, basically, every time we do it, it just adds on 1. And then until we get to the specified, random number. What I didn't talk about in this lesson, but we have in previous one is, prevent the user from entering invalid entries. So, you're asking them, hey, yes or no. And, so we're going to, force them to say yes or force them to say no or whatever you're choosing and making them stick with it. Some custom responses. There's lots of things that we can do. I kind of showed one there, the conditional statements using the random number. And then, of course, hashtag out your code and then use appropriate spacing and line breaks for readability purposes. All right, folks, so there you go. There's links to the notes there in Schoology. Be sure to check all that out, and I will talk to you later.